Welcome back guys on my YouTube channel. Today I'm in company of her, the new CRF 1100L Africa Twin ES. The ES stands for electronic suspensions. If we compare this new 2024 model range, there are several upgrades and changes compared to the previous model. So with no further ado, I'll start telling you all the changes there have been, and then we'll dive into the real test and the fun off-road. But let me start telling you what are the main differences. We start from the front end. We have a new profile for the windshield and all the fairing also side. They have been slightly redesigned to have a better airflow. Also, we have the windshield, which is adjustable in 5 positions without the need of any tools. We just grab here these spring-loaded clips and we can move it up and down. But with moving it up and down, also the tilt angle slightly changes, and from my test of today I could have a really perfect airflow even using the motocross helmet that has the visor, and I personally preferred it down low because also I could see better. The other and most interesting part is the electronic suspensions on the front and on the rear. On the front we have 230mm travel, on the rear we have 220mm travel. We can go and configure the suspensions directly here from the new dashboard, the new TFT display, which is a touchscreen display. You can work on it and change the settings just with even your glove on. The only thing, you can't do it when you're moving, so this feature for safety reason is usable only when you're stationary. In case you're riding and you want to modify any settings, you can do it here from the button panel on the handlebar, which has loads of buttons, but after a few kilometers it becomes pretty intuitive what you need to press in order to adjust it. Other than the suspension, the display, the windshield, we also have brand new wheels. We have tubeless wheels, 21-inch on the front, 18-inch on the rear with the spokes. This was requested by loads of Africa Twin users because it makes it just better for a dual purpose use of off-road and road. Okay guys, didn't manage to finish telling you all the upgrades because everyone was waiting for me and we had to come back here because it was running late. But anyway, with no further ado, the seat height is variable because you have 2 seat positions, so you have 850mm or 870mm. As optional, you can have other 2 different seats with 2 different heights. Another optional that in this case we had for the test but is not OEM with the bike is the crash bars, but clearly here we are also at the True Adventure School by Honda. It was announced today was the first day of this beautiful new warehouse where people will be able to come here, rent bikes, get schooled, get taught on how to ride the Africa Twin, and you have all the service. But going back to what's different on this bike, we have the new tubeless wheels, which are ideal for dual sport purpose because we have the tubeless and rims. We have 21-inch on the front and 18-inch on the rear. We have the normal spokes, and this, you know, widens the opportunity of having different off-road tires for those that want to use it more off-road. The profile of the fairing is slightly different, and also of the rear part of the bike, it has been slightly redesigned to flow a bit better. But the biggest upgrade comes from the engine, and now I'll tell you what's changed. In the engine, the torque has been improved of 7%, even though the total horsepower of the bike is maintained as the previous one. Same goes with the chassis, but inside the engine we have 2 brand new pistons. We also have new piston rods also on the exhaust, which is totally new. The valve that it used to have with the cables going here has been completely removed. This helped increase the torque of the bike together with something that's happening under here, which is the airbox. So the airflow going into the airbox has been varied, it has been improved. All this together has contributed to this better torque. The bike we have tested today is the new Africa Twin CRF 1100L ES. ES for electronic suspensions. So other than the electronic suspensions, this version has OEM also heated grips and 12-volt socket where you can plug in anything. On this bike is, I think, as optional the USB ports. You have here a cap that you can remove, but at the moment is empty, and then the touch screen, but also like a classical dashboard so that you can have all the information. But now let me tell you how this bike handles. How does it feel when riding? Every adventure bike has its own character, and every character is different with its flaws, but also its, strength. And if I had to sum up the new Africa Twin ES version in one word, it would be stability, because this bike is really solid. The way the Japanese engineers have structured and designed this bike is keeping the center of mass really central on the bike, but also the weight being very low. Despite this bike weighs 219 kilos without liquids, when you're riding, it doesn't feel that heavy. And today when we went out testing, what I was a bit worried about is when I saw we were going into some sort of tight trails with loose rocks, I thought I would have a hard time on this bike because it's pretty big and heavy. But actually, with the center of mass being so low, the bike handles really, really well, but at the same time is so stable. I was amazed because even with the loose rocks, the bike would maintain its line, and this combined to the new better torque, but also on how the engine responds, when you open the throttle, I must say that is super smooth. Clearly you have the different maps, the different riding modes, and you can also adjust how you want the response of the bike, but it's super smooth, and this makes it off-road actually easier than a 700-800 bike to ride, because you have to use it at a higher RPM. In today's test, I had the chance to try the two version, the DCT, the one with the automatic shifting, so you don't have the clutch, you don't have the gear lever, but also the manual shifting, so with the classical clutch and gear lever. To me, it's almost an insult speaking about automatic gears on an off-road bike, but I had to change my idea because they're very different also in the riding style. The real question is, who should buy the DCT version and who should buy the mechanical manual gearing version? So the two bike versions are very distinct. To me, if you're a pure off-road rider, for sure you will enjoy more the classical version, so with the gears and the clutch, and that helps you a lot when you're on very tight trails at a slow speed that you need to find the right balance. Having the clutch helps a lot. On the other side, I must say I really actually enjoy the automatic shifting for touring purpose because it made the riding extremely comfortable. Comparing it to the first Africa Twin DCT, it was the Adventure Sports in, I don't remember, but quite a bit of years ago. There has been a huge improvement. When you're riding, you really don't feel the bike changing gear. Whereas the older versions, you would feel it a bit, and also the on-off sensation was bigger. Now you don't have any on-off feeling, and you don't even realize. Sometimes I had to look at the display to see that it actually changed gear. One other thing I need to mention is that you have different levels of automatic shifting, so that it will change gear at a certain level of RPM. You can feel the difference. Anyone, even an amateur rider, can feel the difference between one level or the other, but generally the bike keeps the RPM very low and keeps changing. So this means you find a lot of traction because the increased torque brings you out everywhere. So even with very slippery conditions, you open the throttle, you don't feel the bike changing gear, and it's super smooth. So for riding and going on trips around the world, I think it's super comfortable, and the time to adapt to this system is shorter than you think, because this morning, first bike I got that was left was with the automatic shifting, and after a few kilometers I already felt okay, and I wasn't looking for the clutch or other levers. On the downside, when you are riding on very technical sections at low speeds, you feel the need of the clutch and the gears. But as I said, I think it's two different targets. Who uses this bike to travel around and wants it comfortable, or use it as a daily drive, go with the automatic shifting. If you want to use it for a bit more extreme purposes and more off-road, then you go with the manual shifting. Other very important aspect of this bike I need to mention, this basically has features of the adventure sports, but we have the small fuel tank. This has also, helped with the fuel distribution being lower than the adventure sports with the big tank. I personally prefer this version than the adventure sports, also because the bike feels nice and narrow between the legs. You have a good grip. If I had to find something that I didn't really love is the foot pegs. I believe that with these foot pegs, you manage to find good grip. I never had my foot slip out, but if we compare the foot peg where you're standing on and the brake lever foot peg, the proportion is a bit different. Like the brake lever foot peg has a nice large footprint, as instead the foot peg to me is a bit small, and I would prefer a foot peg with a larger footprint, but this is an easily replaceable part with the aftermarket parts. So I believe that with a wider foot peg you would have a bit more control, especially when you want to do rapid changes, in direction when you're riding. I think having bigger surface helps you apply more pressure. Other small thing I didn't love but is not a deal breaker is the display. When you turn on the key, by the time it goes, to its screen where you can customize it and ride, it takes quite a bit of time, but even while it's loading, you can still turn on the bike and go. So, that is not really a big issue. I enjoyed the fact that I could use the screen as a touch screen, made it very intuitive, because this screen and this bike has so much customization. It makes it easier than using the buttons. You have different riding modes, the different maps. Also, you have 2 custom maps where you can work on everything. You can decide how much stiff you want the suspension. You can decide the preload. You can decide if you want the traction control on a level from 0 to 7, if you want ABS. So I believe that another really cool feature of this new Africa Twin is how every different type of rider can really customize it to its need and to its riding style. And that's what I did. And just to share with you what I did and what I changed, I put traction control to level 1, anti-wheelie to level 0, because I didn't care about, I wanted to wheelie the bike, removed completely the ABS, but on the suspensions, I went all the way to the stiff suspension on the front and on the rear, and experienced how you can really actually feel the difference compared to other motorbikes where sometimes you change the suspension settings and there's not that big of a gap that you really need to have a high sensibility to feel the difference. On this bike, you could really feel the difference, and I loved, the stability. The thing is, it has such a good aerodynamic protection that already makes the bike stable, but with all the weights and the center of mass being so low, you reach very quickly high speeds without realizing. For example, you could go, even in second gear, I could almost reach 120 kilometers an hour. And the problem, not really a problem, but something you have to keep in mind is that then you have to stop this heavy bike, because you'll see that riding it, you'll reach speeds much higher than you think without realizing. So you'll get a lot of speed cameras on the road, but off-road, you have to be very focused in order to stop it. In order to stop the bike, you need good brakes, and I can say these brakes, even though they're the same as the previous version, they work really well. And on the rear, you have a good modularity, so you can really play with the lever, and if you want to block the wheel, you're able to block the wheel. The nice thing is that even opening the throttle when you're using the normal gears, the bike never has, really bad response, but I preferred using the traction on 1 rather than on 0. I thought it made it easier to make it slide than having it on 0. One other very interesting thing that I personally enjoyed a lot on the automatic, on the DCT version, is the fact that I could sort of put it in manual. What do I mean is that I don't have the lever, so I can't, change with my foot, but here on the buttons, on the left-hand side, I can change gear with this finger. I can change and pull up gears, and with my thumb, I can scale down and bring down the gear. So I tried this, and for me, this was a sort of, sequential gearing, like on a car, and it's the one I preferred for the automatic, because I feel the automatic tends to make you go always a super low RPM, which is perfect if you're looking for comfort, if you're looking for grip, but sometimes you you want it to be more aggressive. At least for me, coming for off-road, you want, you know, to ride it hard. Well guys, for today it's all on the test of the CRF 1100L Africa Twin. Let me know in the comments what are your thoughts, what questions you may have about this bike. I personally was blown away on the stability of this bike and also on the engine response, especially using the automatic gears. I thought I'd have a more difficult time adapting. Instead, it was pretty intuitive, and actually for a comfort ride and adventure riding, you know, on gravel roads, and I wanna, you know, just relax, I'd go with the automatic gears, even though I know I'll be blasted down in the comments of you insulting me, but they did a really good job. So stay tuned here on my channel, follow me on Instagram, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!